I got to work with the CEO for about 6 months. We basically shared an office in San Diego. He's the one that brought me out here. He ended up being one of my best friends. Great. But I got to see how it's done up close and personal. And he said something one time that was really impactful. He said, I do it, we do it, and you do it. It's
Mm,
everything in the business ran off of that. He didn't
mhm.
he didn't ask people to do things that he couldn't at least take a stab at himself. But
Right.
that's not going to apply to everybody. But just the mentality was, we're going to build the system together, we're going to do it together, and then we're going to hand it off, and then you can run with it. Right? It wasn't like,
Yes.
hey, you figure it out, I'm going to throw you in the deep end. Right?
Right.
Yeah, I would say that's
Which
maybe one
there
of my
has
many
been a lot of
opinions.
that historically,
Oh
and
my God.
especially in the corporate space, right? You build it, figure it out, bring it back, and if it's what we want, we'll let you know. That's
Which you can do with
yeah.
a very select group.
Yes.
A players, A plus players can do that.
Mhm.
And they will surprise you, and they will come back with things that you would never have thought of. And that's amazing.
Welcome to the Leadership That Shines podcast, the weekly leadership training show that's built around three values that show up in everything we do: impact, influence, and growth. Whether you're leading a team, building a business, or learning to lead yourself first, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Natalie Davis. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership That Shines podcast. I am so excited to be back with all of you, and I am really excited about our guest today. We have Matt Johnson. Matt, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing well. It's a joy and a pleasure to be here, and I expect that we'll have a wildly unconventional and who knows where this will go kind of conversation. So I'm
I
excited about that.
expect nothing less. Nothing less. Well, here's the thing. Your background is really intriguing to me. But what got you on the show, I have to share with the listeners, is the fact that you questioned your leadership experience per se, but more so highlighting the fact that you had a lot of opinions about leadership. And so I said, say less. Please come and join us.
Yes, you did not let me regale you with all those opinions
No.
separately. But we're about to find out what those are, because I am an
I love
opinionated
it. I
person.
love it.
And well, yeah, we're going to find out what I have to say, because it's been a while. I haven't been interviewed on a subject about leadership in quite a while. It's something that I think about a lot and have thought about a lot, and I have some interesting kind of stories behind that. But yeah, it's not like I've written a book about it. These are all just things that I've learned over experience of leading teams.
Absolutely. Well, I think that the best place for us to start is in the very beginning, right? And you shared as we were preparing for the show that you grew up as a preacher's kid, so you had the opportunity to witness, observe, and understand the importance of leadership at a very young age. And I think there's a lot of pressure and expectation that's built in with the responsibility of being a preacher's child. So I would love for us just to learn a little bit more about your history and introduction to leadership from that standpoint, because I think that has probably shaped a lot of the opinions that you have today.
It has, although I've had to leave some interesting, religious things behind as well. You get into the business
Mhm.
world, and some of that stuff does not lend itself very well to the business world. So, growing up, at least for me, so my pastor, or my dad, pastored small churches, and he is a natural introvert and a fairly tall, intimidating guy, right? So he was viewed in a very interesting way, right? Very hard on the exterior, but I, being the kid, knew the soft, kind of the way that he treated people behind the scenes, and us as a family. Um, so I kind of saw what I would describe as maybe a benevolent dictatorship, um, where
Yes.
it's like, yes, things are going to be my way or the highway, but I care very deeply about whether I'm doing right by people, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Absolutely.
I saw that kind of firsthand. They were also not huge churches, multiple small churches over the course of my childhood, and then into my adult years. I helped him start one when I was like 20. So I've been in it as a kid. I've been in it as a young adult, and I kind of seen it from some different angles. And like I said, he's a natural introvert, right? So he's not the person, and neither am I, that wants to spend their time in networking rooms and glad handing and things like that. That does not come naturally to us. It has to be a very um, leading by values, leading by teaching, right? My
Mhm.
dad's a natural teacher. I inherited that by watching him. And so my natural bend of everything that I do starts with teaching, right? Teach, train, and lead is kind of like the abbreviation I come up with years ago. That model doesn't work for everybody, right?
Right.
So if there's anything I learned about leadership kind of starting out is being in that world and seeing leadership up close, you see a lot of different personality types of leadership. And I
Hmm.
admired my dad's, and I ended up becoming very much like that. But I also saw a bunch of leadership styles up close, and I realized that there's a whole bunch of stuff that works, right?
Right.
People will follow a lot of different types of leaders, and that's okay. You
Right.
do have to lean into what you are and understand what
Yes.
that is. Like that will make things a lot easier. So as I got into the business world, I realized that like through the business that I had started, the way that I had built the team, the way that I had structured things, I'm like, wow. Like I look back on my childhood and I'm like, I've kind of structured things a lot like my dad had them. Like
Hmm.
lean staff. I don't have an office. I don't have people where I have to be around them a lot. Everybody is scattered all across the country and across the world. We work remotely, right? I always have been since like 2015. And so like it's a very introvert friendly kind of environment I've built for myself, just like
Yeah.
my dad did with the way he ran his church. Like there was no staff. My mom
Yes.
was the bookkeeper and the manager, and my grandparents did the cleaning. Like it was very lean, and like it created this, I don't know, cocoon of privacy that my dad had
Mhm.
around it, which is, if you know anything about the church world, is usually the exact opposite of how most pastors are. They
Mhm.
usually end up spending 90% of their time away from their family, out with the church congregation,
Right.
just kind of like doing things, visiting, talking, like all this stuff. My dad did mostly none of that,
Yeah.
and spent a ton of time with us as a family, which is why we were never were the traditional pastors' kids that were the hellraisers. So yeah,
Wonderful. That's
so I
so
saw a lot of
interesting.
stuff up front, like up close, very early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Matt, you touched on this a little bit in terms of your dad being an introvert and you recognizing and realizing you yourself operated in that same way. Like you were naturally an introvert,
Hmm.
which I think surprises many people. You and I have connected on that. Naturally, I'm an introvert. I recharge by being alone and not
Hmm.
connecting with other people. But you built your business around this as well. You said a safe space for introverts, which I love that. Um, Talk to us about that in terms of understanding who you were. That's an authenticity piece, and then building
Hmm.
the business that would actually support you, where you could thrive.
Okay. So there was a time. So I run a marketing agency, right? We produce shows like this for business experts and thought leaders. And there was a time when I looked up and I realized that the business only needed three things from me. Now, in my case, it was like strategy, copywriting, and leadership, right? Team
Mhm.
building and just the leadership of the team. And so I just, once I had that revelation, I started withdrawing from all the other parts of the business that I was in, because those were the things that drained my energy.
Mhm.
And that's something that I think that, like as a leader, it's really easy to just get pulled on in a bunch of different ways by the expectations of other people. And especially if you're in an environment where you come in and you're following a leader with a different personality, and there's a whole bunch of pre-existing commitments that people have. Now, I didn't have that because I built my company from the ground up. So the only expectations were the ones that I set, right? But I still had a bunch of stuff I had to withdraw from, a whole bunch of stuff I
Mhm.
had to say no to. In my case, I had outside business partnerships as well. I had to withdraw from all of those too. So,
Mhm.
like, there were
Mhm.
commitments I had made that I realized I had overextended myself, and I had to get out of all that stuff. And then from there, I just started building out a structure that allowed me to focus on just those three things and have all the other things done by other people. So this will interest anyone that has any ties to the real estate space. When I was like in my mid 20s, I got into real estate and I read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, like a whole bunch of people did in the 2000s. And I did start going down that track and realized that that wasn't the right business, but I loved the model, and I ended up building my agency off that model, right? Like the CEO model of how
Yep.
to run a real estate like that ended up being the model for how I run the agency. And so I basically try to have really good systems and then hire smart, capable people to run them. And then I try to install really good, I guess, leadership systems and habits so that that stuff
Mhm.
just happens naturally.
Absolutely. I want to touch on the piece of hiring the smart and capable people because this
Mm.
conversation has come up quite a bit for me in the last couple of days with leaders that I've connected with across the country. And it's in terms of those hires, like understanding that there is a little bit of a learning curve for the person that you're hiring on, but then there's also a pain point for the person that's doing the leader, the training, right? The leader that's in that role that has to do the training. How did you settle into that role, being the introvert and looking at the business that you were aspiring to build at that time, understanding how you were going to hire the right people to fill those gaps that you wanted to pull yourself out of?
Well, it started with a client, and he said something to me that changed my life. So I was working with a guy who built the number one real estate team in my state.
Okay.
And he was a client because I was helping him build out his coaching consulting company. I ended up being a partner in the business. That was one of the things I had to get out of. So
Mm,
we ended up getting really, really close, right? So I saw behind the scenes how he ran his business. And he just said to me one time, he's like, all these people talk about, hiring rock stars, rock star this, rock star that. He's like, I don't need rock stars. He's like, I have rock star systems. And then I get the right people to run them. And I have a business that I can just go to sleep. And I sleep securely at night, knowing that basically any one of them can leave, they can move on, life can happen, and they can be replaced by someone who's also smart and good and capable and all those things.
yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Like everybody wants to pride themselves on hiring the best. Like, hey, I'm an A player, I only hire other A players. And that there's spaces where that is an absolute table stakes. If you're not doing that, you will fail, period, end of story. We're not talking about
Right.
those businesses, right? There's 80% of the business world does not operate like that, right?
Right. Correct.
So we're talking about the majority of business. And I just loved that approach. And I didn't realize it when I first struck out on my own that I had that systems building skill set. It wasn't until I got around him and people like that I started building my own systems and realized I enjoyed it. And not everybody enjoys it, right? Like some people need to hire that out, and that's fine too. But if you have the good, really, really, really good systems first, it makes the right people easier to attract,
Mhm.
easier to train and onboard. They stay longer because there's less friction. It's easier to hold them accountable because you're holding them accountable to something concrete and not your own feelings. And when they leave, they have helped improve the system while they're there. And you just hire another good, smart, capable person and you plug them in
Yeah.
and they hit the ground running faster. So it made everything in the business so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into the weeds a little bit, Matt, in terms of building systems,
Mm.
because this is a space that I think many people struggle with is creating the systems. And at these same conversations that I've had this week, it's interesting that I tell people that the challenge that they have with hiring someone is that you have to train someone on the systems that you may or may not have in place. And that's the true struggle, right? So
Yeah.
talk to us about building out systems. Do you have a system for everything? I'm assuming.
Just about. Well, I mean,
Okay.
for example, I'm building out a system to like spit out meal plans so I can go to Trader Joe's and know exactly what to buy. That's kind of like how my brain works.
That's where your brain is right now. Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Okay.
Unlike my system of, I have one, it's a process. It's not a system, I should say. And it's specifically for Trader Joe's now that you've brought it up. It's always to go against the wave of traffic. So whatever way the traffic is going, you go in the opposite direction so you don't have to stay in that stream. You're the salmon. You swim
So you're saying
upstream.
you start with the wine first.
That's exactly right. How'd you know? That's it.
All right. You may be a Trader Joe's like some sort of Zen master. Okay. I didn't realize that's what I was dealing with when I signed up for
That's
this
it.
podcast.
That's
All
how
right.
my brain works.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Okay.
so you have a system in place for everything, plugging the right people in or just competent people in, because the
Mm.
systems are pretty much fail proof, right? Like they're in
In theory,
place that they
yeah.
are going to continue to operate.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And if there's somebody in the business where they're the type of role that has frequent like the more frequent the turnover, the more
Yeah.
detailed, the system is to replace them. Not every role in the business is like that. Sometimes you just have really good systems that they can plug into. And the
Right.
system to replace them is I have a rough idea that this type of person can grow into that role, or I might have to hire from the outside. There's some roles that you just, like in a small business, you can't always grow everybody into roles.
Right.
So in terms of systems, AI has made this unbelievably easier, right?
Mm,
Back in the day, prior to ChatGPT, when I built most of my systems for my business, I did it the hard way, which was I thought out every step. I recorded all the walkthrough videos. Then I documented exactly how things were done. And then I would work as my business grew and evolved, and I had people that were higher level expertise than me in each of these different roles. Well, then I would either interview them and then kind of build the systems based off of not transcripts, but like the notes and summaries and things like that. But anyway,
Right.
so I would use systems like Trello, for example, right, just to
Hmm.
kind of checklist everything out, and then have a video, right? So you get both. You get the writing and you get the see somebody do it. Um, the guy that I came up under in the last agency, the last time I was an employee, was an amazing experience. I got to work with the CEO for about 6 months. We basically shared an office in San Diego. He's the one that brought me out here. He ended up being one of my best friends. Great. But I got to see how it's done up close and personal. And he said something one time that was really impactful. He said, I do it, we do it, and you do it. It's like
Mm.
everything in the business ran off of that. Like he didn't
Mhm.
he didn't ask people to do things that he couldn't at least take a stab at himself. Now that,
Right.
that's not going to apply to everybody, but just the mentality was, we're going to build the system together. We're going to do it together. And then we're going to hand it off and then you can run with it. Right. It wasn't like,
Yes.
hey, you figure it out. I'm going to throw you in the deep end. Right.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that's
Which
maybe one
there
of my
has
many
been a lot of
opinions.
that historically,
Oh
and
my God.
especially in the corporate space, right? You build it, figure it out, bring it back, and if it's what we want, we'll let you know.
Right.
That's
Which you can do with
yeah.
a very select group.
Yes.
A players, A plus players can do that,
Hmm.
and they will surprise you, and they will come back with things that you would never have thought of, and
Right.
that's amazing. However, the odds that you have an A player at every position all the time are slim, and I
Mhm.
don't care who you are. You can be in Silicon Valley, you can be Jeff Bezos. The odds that you have A plus players in relation to everyone in your industry,
Right.
is slim. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can only do that with a select few people. Everybody else needs, they need training wheels. They need things
Yeah.
to be smoothed out. They need something they can count on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think leaders way, way underestimate just how much stability the average person that works for you needs, right? Crystal clear expectations,
Yes.
simple absolutes that they can know whether they're hitting them or not.
Right.
Um, Traction was really good for this, right? Gino Wickman and all the entrepreneur operating system stuff. That was really good. It
Hmm.
forced me to narrow down what were the actual numbers that I held the team
Mm.
accountable to. We've tracked those numbers
Yeah.
for years and years and years. Every single Tuesday, the same numbers over and over and
Nice.
over again. And it's like a
Wow.
completion percentage for a quarterback, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
it's they know, like, hey, if we're hitting this number, if we're getting this threshold, you're fine.
Yes.
Period. End of story. Like, doesn't matter what my emotions are. I'm so like, I'm not really a mercurial, emotional up and down person anyway. But even if I was, it wouldn't matter, right? Like that number lets them know that they're doing a good job.
That's beautiful. And I think a staple piece that you shared that you learned is I'll do it, we'll do it, you do it, right? It's that we have a very clear understanding, and it also creates that sense of buy-in for everyone on the
Yeah.
team when you
Yeah.
have that approach, not just I hope you succeed at this. I may or may not be setting you up for success. We'll see how it lands, right? And I
Hmm.
really love that piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my mentors is one of the top. How would I describe him? He was a coach to the absolute cream of the crop of executive recruiters.
Mm.
Right. Now, this is before he passed away, but
Hmm.
essentially, like if you know Management Recruiters International, which is now part of HireQuest, he was like the guy that coached their top people. I mean, he was coaching the number one and number two MRI worldwide person at the same time,
Wow.
like the top
Yeah.
ones, right? And he turned me on to like some of those concepts. He sent me some incredible books. Who, which is where the whole kind of A player thing comes from many
Right.
years ago. Um, and top grading books like that, books like Managing the Professional Services Firm by David Maister. Oh my God, is
Oh,
one of the best books
not
I've ever
familiar.
read. It was written
Okay.
by like a law firm consultant. It's one of the best like leadership books I've ever read.
Adding it to
So
my list. Perfect. Okay.
yes, it's an
Yeah.
amazing book, right? He literally mailed it to me after our first conversation. I you know, reached out to him after I got it. And I'm like, what did you send me? This is like the most incredible thing I've ever. He's like, I thought you would like it. I'm like, okay, great. And that kicked off like a 10-year friendship. Um, but yeah, like just the top grading, like just that idea, like understanding that you've got like for everybody on your team, they're not all A players and you cannot have the same expectations. B players and C players, they need the better the systems are, the better their performance will be. And it's your responsibility as a leader to give them good systems. Otherwise, you're really just shirking the responsibility. A players are the only ones that can bring their own systems. That's one of those opinions.
That's huge. That's huge. And I think that comes back into the hiring piece that we talk about, right? Like if you're hiring on and you are expecting to hire all A players, the 20% of the population, that's not realistic. So understanding that you can have a successful team that comprises of A, B,
Yeah.
and C players, as
Yeah.
long as your systems are in place, it really sets up that safety net for the entire company or
Mhm.
organization.
It does. And speaking of systems, like I think must have ran across this years ago because I don't think I can take credit for it. Although if I say it often enough, it becomes mine, right? Um,
Mhm. Yes.
so everything in the
We'll
business is either a
trademark
project or
it
a
here.
system. Yeah, trademark Matt Johnson. Everything in
Yes.
the business is either a project or a system. And so I have different expectations, right? If something is a project, it's something we're doing for the first time. Unexpected stuff is going to come up.
Mhm.
Mistakes will be made. The only
Mhm.
question is when and how bad will it be? But once you set that as the expectation, it makes it a lot easier to run projects,
Yes.
right? You're not expecting things to be perfect. You're expecting that there's mistakes. It's not a big
Mhm.
deal. They're planned for. You build in the cushion for it
Yeah.
for them to exist, right? Systems are different. Like systems, hey, like I want things executed right 99.9% of the time, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be some gray areas where even the best intentioned human being is going to screw up. And as long as you screwed up in the right direction, I'm going to be okay with it, right? But
Exactly.
projects are different, right? You're doing something for the first time. All the kinks aren't worked out. You don't have SOPs. You don't have checklists. You don't have walkthrough. You don't have any of that. So
Yeah.
it's like I approach them so completely differently, and it just puts I guess my staff emotionally at ease,
Exactly.
right?
They
That
feel
there
safe.
will be mistakes. They feel safe, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
And safety is such a big piece that comes up quite a bit when we're talking about leadership. But what popped up for me, Matt, and I'm going to speak specifically to our entrepreneurs that listen to this, is that when you have an entrepreneur that's starting out or rebranding or relaunching or what have you, everything tends to be a project, right? It's like, let's figure out if this works. And it's like throwing things at the wall and
Yep.
not having those systems in place. And so if you are working as a team or a partnership on something and every task or action item that you are working towards fulfillment is a project, create that space where we're working in this direction and leaving room for error, but making sure that you're creating a system to support it if you're
Mhm.
going to carry it forward. And hopefully you carry one or two of them forward
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the goal
Yeah.
of a project should result hopefully in a system, something that's
in a
repeated over
system.
time if it's a project
Yeah.
worth doing, typically, yeah.
Yeah.
The emotional safety part is huge. You know, and
It
people
is.
knowing that they're secure, they know when they're doing a good job. They know that
Yeah.
if you feel like they're not doing a good job, they know how you're going to respond.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they know that you're not going to jump down their throat. I mean, some things are bad enough that you do have to, a little righteous indignation is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But the emotional safety part is so, so huge. People do not like working for roller coaster leaders.
Mhm.
Like that is
Mhm.
that is a bad, and that, by the way, that can be, entrepreneurs have this. And this probably there's Silicon Valley, I bet, had struggles with this too. Leaders who want to translate ideas into action so quickly that their
Mhm.
staff feels like they have whiplash,
Mhm.
that there's a little bit of like pride taken in that. I remember being around my old CEO as they were in like scaling phase. They ended up being like
Mhm.
profiled by Vern Harnish for how they scaled the agency. And
Yeah.
he said something really interesting, which is that he's like, I actually have to like put a buffer between me and like management
Yes.
because they can't hear me talk about all the ideas I have. It's like, I
Right.
have to like express them to you, Matt. It's like, okay, great, thanks. But he's like, I have to dump them all on you, and we
Yes.
have to talk them, and then I will sort out which actually what wants to get done. He's like, and then I'll often like take a few steps forward myself alone before
Yes.
anybody else in the company knows about it because they cannot handle all the ideas. They can't handle the mental projection of this way and then that way, then this
Right.
way and then that way. They can't handle it.
Yeah. And you need that in the company, right? Those are your visionary leaders in the organization, and you need those individuals to have that forward thinking, be the thought leaders of the group, so that you can exist in 5, 10, 15 years. But the other piece of that is that they're constantly throwing out ideas, and it starts to chip away at the trust.
Yes.
The people on your
Yeah.
team and the people that are working for you start to question, do we know what direction we're going in? There are so many ideas that keep coming our way. You've got having that buffer was
Mhm.
key. That's
Yeah.
really key. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was interesting because it gets to what we were talking about, kind of like in the lead up when you sent me some of the questions and they were
Hmm.
really, thought provoking. And it got me thinking about like the structure, the systems, the habits,
Yeah.
right? So in addition to being a pastor's kid, somewhat because I was a pastor's kid, I picked up the drums at like 2, right? Like I got my first pair of drumsticks. Then I ended up picking up like 4 other instruments. So I've been a musician my whole life.
Wow. I didn't know
Uh,
that. Fun new fact. Okay, great.
yeah,
Good
yeah,
to know.
that's
Okay.
my
Yes.
micro grand piano right behind me there. Um,
Perfect. Okay.
so musicians approach things very, very differently. Um,
Mhm.
whatever is worth doing is worth practicing so much that it can be done right without even thinking about it, that it happens on autopilot. So there's old saying, like musicians have this saying that kind of goes around. It's like amateurs practice until they can get it right. Pros practice until they can't get it wrong. That's the
Wow.
difference, right? They practice until they can't get it wrong. Because musicians understand that like the difference between the practice room and when you go on stage is like it immediately knocks off like let's say 10 to 15% of your physical natural skill,
Hmm.
right? Just the extra mental processing of I'm on stage, I can't hear the singer right in my monitors. The crowd, that
Right.
girl over there is clapping off time. Why is
Yes.
she doing that? Like all that
Yes.
stuff, right? Like at the mental processing, it limits how good you are. So you
Right.
have to be so good that you can do everything that might be required of you on stage without pushing the edge of your abilities, without any conscious thought being paid to it, because you've got to leave your mind to focus on everything else that's going on. That's how
Right.
musicians look at it. Here's what I believe about leadership. People believe that leadership is about focusing. I'm going to be a good leader today.
Right.
Like, I'm going to watch a motivational video. I'm going to be a good leader today. And as if it has no value if you're a good leader without thinking about it. And I don't think that that's true. I think, in fact, if you can lead well on autopilot, it shows that you've installed this kind of structure both in yourself, with your habits, with how you lead yourself. You've installed it structurally in how you built the team, how you interact with the
Mhm.
team, what your meeting rhythm is, like all those things, right? Those are all structural things that
Right.
you have absolute control over, right? Especially as a business owner, maybe not so much a middle manager, but as an entrepreneur, you certainly do. And that's the stuff where leadership actually happens. That's the equivalent of like the practice room for a musician,
Mhm.
right? It's the
Mhm.
stuff that people don't see. It's
Right.
away from the limelight, and
Right.
it's what actually supports you when you're in front of people, right?
Right.
Because like we think of leadership as what happens when I'm in front of my team, but the team
Right.
was also paying attention to, did you show up on time?
Mhm.
Is your hair done?
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
Um, so
Absolutely.
I
Are
don't
you
want people to see the video
prepared?
for this, but
Yes.
my apartment, right? Like I have a loft apartment that overlooks downtown San Diego. I might be in love with it more than some members of my family.
Okay.
Um, I love the way that this background looks. I have
Yes.
2 lights that are on. You realize that those lights are on for every single team meeting we have. If I sit down to my desk and they're not on, I get up from the desk and I go turn them on. My setup looks exactly the same. I'm always dressed well.
Yep.
I'm always prepared,
Yep.
right? We've had a team meeting with my key people every Tuesday without fail for I don't even know if we can remember when we didn't. At least back before
Mm.
2020 when my current operations manager joined me. Before that, I had a weekly meeting with my head writer that stretched 3 years before that to like 2016.
Wow.
Um, if I'm not there because I'm traveling, like when we met at the Beats event, that was a Tuesday,
Yeah.
right? My
Yeah.
team met without me and they asked each other the same questions I usually ask them because it's
Perfect.
so
Yes.
ingrained, right? Like that's the kind of like structural stuff. Like that's the stuff that you don't like people don't think about because
Right.
maybe that's not in the books, but it's because they're thinking of leadership as like the rah rah stuff when they're in front of people. It's like
Right.
that's like the tip of the iceberg. The real leadership is all the stuff that happened underneath the water that you're either paying attention to or not, and your team knows the difference. So
Either way, it's going to have an impact.
massively. Yeah. Well, yeah. And the unfortunate part for people that believe it's the raw stuff is that's the
Hmm.
thing that matters the least. It's all the
Yep,
other stuff that matters more.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Matt, what I witness as well as you share this is the leaders that you're training and developing along the way as well. Like it's not intentionally I'm tapping these individuals to be leaders, but the fact that your team will still show up and support each other in that leadership capacity when you're not there.
Mhm.
That's the building of leaders around you within your organization.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that has to be intentional too. The way
Yeah.
that you construct it, the way that you ask for their buy-in, the way that you structure the accountability so that there's lateral accountability and not just, up-down accountability from you to them.
No.
Yeah. Lateral accountability was a big game changer for our team.
Yeah.
Getting more people on meetings, or at least giving them the option to, um, creating more opportunities for two-way communication outside of me, because coming from a
Mhm.
small business, you start with like a wheel and spoke, right? You end up
Mhm.
kind of being unintentionally the center of everything and all communication
Mhm.
runs through you. I had to gradually shift that over to the role of the operations director,
Yeah.
which was not easy, but it was gradual. And now that it's done, it's like I'm out of most
Yeah.
communication. Like I run the agency in less than 4 hours a week. At least like anything else I do is like optional for like sales and marketing or whatever. But the operations I run in a few hours, if I'm needed at all. Like
Yeah.
there's some weeks where it's like, yeah, I show up to the meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll answer some questions and give some input or make a decision or something, but I'm not actually required. Like I could go off to Bali for a month or two and the business would keep on running fine. That's the result of all the groundwork and all the other stuff that we built over that time.
Matt, you've taken us to the spot that I want to make sure that we touch on because when you shared that you're able to lead your agency in about 4 hours per week. Like I had to do a double take on that question when you answered it. And I was like, we're absolutely going there because especially our solopreneurs and our entrepreneurs, those are leading smaller companies and organizations. They're at the center of everything, like you mentioned. Tell me how you've been able to build an agency that allows you the opportunity to lead for 4 hours a week if needed. If needed.
Mm.
That's yeah.
Well, I will share first that it's partly by necessity. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
so I didn't realize this, but for about 25 years, I had undiagnosed narcolepsy. So I was moving through life with the energy levels of someone who had been forcibly sleep deprived for about 48 hours, which
Oh,
is how they
wow.
coincidentally is how they torture people. So basically, I went through life, existing on torture levels of energy. So
Wow.
for
Okay.
most of my
Yeah.
adult life and teenage years, like I had a few good hours of energy a day, and then everything else was like white knuckling it just to get through the day. Let alone, I mean, I remember like practicing at night. I would write these crazy practice schedules split between drums and piano, and I'd fall asleep playing drums, practicing. Yeah, like
Wow.
I couldn't keep my eyes open. So anyway,
Yeah.
flash forward to being an entrepreneur, right? Mid 30s. I still don't have any more energy. I don't have more than a few hours of energy a day. I'm medicated now and I feel better. And you saw me at the event.
Mhm.
I could roll all day. Now I
Yeah.
still need 3 weeks to recover from that event, but I was able to roll throughout the day
Understood.
because the medication helps. But I was
Yeah.
severely limited by my energy levels. So I started moving towards like getting me out of decision making, breaking that down to where the decisions could be made without me, understanding what decisions could and couldn't be made without me, building really good systems for how the work was executed. I mean, again, that managing the professional services firm book was really, really good because it made the point that everything, like everything is interconnected.
Mhm.
The work that you tell clients that you do affects who you need to hire and the structure that they need to be in.
Mhm.
So I sell one thing to one kind of person, right? That allows us to have really good, clean internal systems. We customize around the margins. We
Mhm.
don't customize the core thing we do, right?
Mhm.
So it's like it affect like everything. I had to structure everything about the
Yeah.
business to support that. But because it wasn't a choice, at least in the early days, um, it just had to be done.
Mhm.
But yeah, like books
Absolutely.
like that and like building the structures of it, I just realized that it's everything is so interconnected. um that book in particular was really helpful with that because it kind of
Yeah.
laid out the different roles within any team. And the interplay between, if you offer this kind of thing, you have to have this kind of staff, and they're going to relate to each other in a certain kind of way. And it talks about like the up and out.
Yeah.
Are you a culture that promotes up? What happens when they hit their ceiling? Like, are you a culture that brings from within? I had to think through all that stuff. I started thinking through that stuff in 2015, very early on in the business. So that was really helpful.
Perfect. And how big have you been able to build out your team today? Where do you
We
sit?
run between 12 and 15
Okay.
on average.
All within the
Sometimes a little
creative
bit bigger.
space.
Yeah, video editors, audio
Hmm.
editors, writers, yes. They're typically all
Yes.
creatives of some form, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not
Absolutely.
exactly your typical roll into an office, do things consistently boring for a
I
long,
I was gonna
steady
say,
period
would
of
you
time.
enjoy that if it were? I don't.
No, as far as having them all show up to an office, no, it would be my
Yeah,
living nightmare.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
but I'd rather manage a bunch of creatives than a bunch of accountants, probably. But yeah,
Absolutely.
like we had to have really good systems to make it easy to manage creative people, because creative
Hmm.
people don't like being managed. That's why we do what we do,
Hmm.
right? That's
Hmm.
that's why we're out here
Hmm.
like in entrepreneur land, you and I, because we don't want to be told what to do.
Exactly.
And I have
Exactly.
12 to 15 people on my team at any given time, but that's exactly how they feel.
They don't want
So
that.
I better have really good systems for that.
I was going to say that is the fact that you were able to really narrow in as well and have a really dialed in niche in terms of this is what we offer, this is our service, and here's our clientele that we serve. As a creative from your space, like you get into that spot where you're like, well, we could just make an exemption here and offer this next segment. And so that really hones you in as well, because
Yes.
you do have the liberty to expand that if you so wish, but you've recognized that that's just going to create internal turmoil and chaos for the team and
Yes.
for yourself.
Yeah, there was do you remember the book Rework? It was by the
Yes.
guys that created 37 I love that book.
Yes.
One of the
Yes.
best things they ever wrote was like, let your customers outgrow you.
Yeah.
And that little essay in that book blew my mind, which you
Yep.
know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But I applied that to my employees too, right?
Mm,
They will outgrow me. In fact, if they don't, maybe something's wrong.
exactly.
I've had
That's
people that
it.
have been with me for a long time,
Yeah.
but they also have outside projects. If they didn't, I'd be more concerned.
Yeah.
It's the fact that they can express themselves in other ways. They don't need to get all their expression through my business, all their creativity, all their fulfillment. That doesn't need to come from my business, which is why they've been able to stay with me so long. But I never expected it to, right? Like
Mm,
I know that as a leader, I don't need to create a vision big enough to hang on to anyone I ever hire
mhm.
or anyone who ever hires me, right?
Yeah.
Like we are for the work that we do is for a very specific, I would say entry level coach, speaker, author, someone who
Mhm.
may be a massive world changing expert in one area, but they're not an expert of being a thought leader yet, right? They're
Yeah.
still relatively new in that journey. That's our bread and butter, period, end of story.
Yeah.
My staff, I don't need for everyone to stay for 5 years. It's great when some of them do, but
Mhm.
some of them, like, it's like, hey, like, we need to keep you for a year, and then like it's time for you to move on. We'll hire you, we'll replace you with someone that's a little bit more, intermediate or whatever the case is. Like it's just like
Right.
yeah, like it set me free. It gave me permission to build a structure that lets people go through it, as opposed to me feeling like it's a failure every time a client outgrows or needs to pause, or a team member needs to move on, or whatever the case is. And that allowed me to also like be okay with investing into team members to help them grow,
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
plan for them to outgrow me, right?
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people think of it that way. The best do, but not a lot.
Exactly. There's a lot of ego in it because people take it personally. Leaders
Yes.
take it personally, right? Like I've poured so much into you. How could you leave me? I didn't think that you would
Right.
ever this day would come. Let's be realistic. If you're truly pouring into individuals so that they can become the best version of themselves, you would want them to leave and go on to the next thing that continues to fulfill their purpose.
You would
That's what
think
you would
so.
want to have. Yeah. Matt, you touched on something as you were giving this last response, and I want to make sure that we talk about it because I think it's important when we're looking at failure for leaders, right? You've identified this cycle that leaders often get into when they experience failure. It's like you experience the failure, you have the guilt, and then you have
The recommitment.
exactly.
This
Talk
is the
to us
cycle
about
that fuels all leadership events. So I'm about to crash the
yeah.
entire leadership event industry. I mean, this is why people sign up. Yeah. So basically you feel like you're failing at leadership, or something happens to where you feel like you're not paying it enough attention, which I think that goes back to that idea that if you're not white knuckling it and focusing it on it every day, then it's not valuable. You're not doing leadership if you're not focused on it every day.
Right.
So people hit this point where they're like, I'm not being a good leader. I'm not focusing on it as much as I should be. I'm not waking up every morning thinking I need to be a better leader. So then they have the guilt, right? They feel guilty for not focusing on it to that level, or somebody left and they take it personally. And then they recommit. I'm going to be a better leader. And then they go sign up for an event or something like that. And they watch the motivational videos, they buy the books, they do whatever they need to do that will get them like emotionally recommitted to making more emotional effort to being a good leader.
Mhm.
I'm not a very emotional, it's taken me a long time to like be okay with just having them. Let's put it that way. But I have emotions. I have a therapist. I recognize they're a good thing. They're fine.
Yes.
But for a long time, I was like, well, I don't need those.
Right.
So like I've learned to kind of take emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Um, and I look at things in terms of the systems and structure,
Mhm.
and those things happen on autopilot. Like, what shows that you truly care is what systems are you running, what structure have you built, and how are you continuing to improve both of those things. That's
Mhm.
where you can put your emotional energy in. Is if you're putting your
Yeah.
emotional energy there, the actual leadership is just you showing up and being yourself and kind of
Yeah.
doing your systems and doing your week. And you know what I'm saying? Like, um, I think I said to somebody one time, like, if you can't put leadership on the calendar, like it might as well not exist, right? You can't put being a better leader on the calendar.
Yeah.
But you can put meetings,
Right.
right? Are you meeting with your key people? What are you
Mhm.
asking them in the meeting? How does the meetings go? Do the meetings happen without you? Like, just that little microcosm of an example.
Mhm.
Are when you look at your week, are you leading by the expression of what you're physically actually doing with your time,
Right.
even if you're not thinking about it in the moment? And so if you take the emotional part out of it, right, I think it
Mhm.
can set a lot of people free from that cycle of failing because they feel like they're failing, inflicting guilty feelings on themselves,
Mhm. Mhm.
recommitting to feeling like they care more about leadership, and then striving every day to wake up and care more about leadership with their feelings. I'm like, just stop all of that.
Right.
Um,
And then they just stay
yeah,
on that loop, right? Because then they
yes, they
fail at
stay
that
on that loop.
again. Because once
Exactly.
that fizzles or that excitement dies down or you realize that you're not showing up any differently, you get back
Hmm.
into that space where you are failing and you have the guilt again and you're having to just restructure everything again. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And it's basically just you're sentencing yourself to an emotional roller coaster ride for no
Yeah.
reason, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. Okay, that's huge. I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to touch on that. This has been amazing, by the way. So thank you for all of these nuggets. I call them gems. So thank you for all of the gems that you're giving us. Is there anything that you would like to share with any of our like aspiring leaders or entrepreneurs or solopreneurs that are in a space where maybe they don't have the systems in place yet, and they're wanting to, and they know they want and need to build them out, and they know it? What advice would you give to those individuals?
Put time on the calendar to interview your key people, and then have the interview transcribed and ask AI to create the system for you. We are at that point
Mm,
where that can be done. Thankfully,
that's
thankfully.
huge. And be ready for the output.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
yeah. I mean,
You have to be
the
open to
more
that.
systematic thinker you are,
Yeah.
the easier AI will have it. But that's, who cares? Everybody's personality is
Absolutely.
different.
Well, I went through a similar process. I took some of my processes through and loaded them into AI, just to figure out where my bottleneck was, and it came back and told me that I was the bottleneck, and I took it personally, exactly what you told us not to do. I took it personally, and then I got out of my own way, and then I was like, okay, let's fix it. Let's work to fix that. Um, we're all on this journey.
Yeah, I love it.
I love that. And we are in a great place, and putting that on your calendar, that's the key piece, is
Mm,
making sure that you schedule it. Don't just say
yeah,
I'm going to do that eventually. Schedule it, sit down, spend some time on that and for the interview itself, and then load that in and let's learn.
yep, 100%.
Yeah. I think that's something that comes up quite a bit, and I shared this in one of the newsletters a few weeks ago, and someone approached me just this week to have a conversation about the topic of how others see us as leaders and how we show up for them. And
Mm.
the question or the challenge that I put out there is to ask those people that are on your team that report to you to tell you how you show up as a leader or how they see you as a leader. And the person that I had this conversation with, she shared that she really enjoyed the fact that I invited them to the challenge, and she was not prepared to get the responses back from that question yet. And that's a reality, right? Like, if
Yep.
you're not in a space that you can hear it, my invitation to you is that you're probably in a space that you should hear it. You should hear it. Yes. Now's
Yes.
the
Well,
time.
if you're afraid of what they're going to say, then you already know what they're going to say, and it
Then you
triggers
know
all
what they're going to
different
say.
childhood stuff.
Exactly.
And you already know what it
Exactly.
is anyway. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I do think AI has made it a lot easier to get organized, and that's all
Yeah.
systems are. Um, but yeah, there was a gentleman I heard give a seminar a million years ago, early 20s. Somebody gifted me like a set of seminar tapes, and he gave this example where he was trying to set a new habit, hanging his bathroom towel, like his towel up in the bathroom, and he realized he
Mm.
got like 10 minutes away from his house, and his wife was with him. He's like, I forgot to put my towel back on the rack. She's like, that's all right. Like, I'll get it for you when I get back home. He's like, nope. Drove right back around, did it himself. And he's like, when you're first establishing a new habit, it's like, never let an exception occur. And I've never
Mm.
forgotten that. Such a good line. Never let an exception occur. Not that you never can, but when you're starting a new habit, never let
Right.
it occur. Right. So I think that's
Absolutely.
the key to like putting a new system in place is just in that first month or two, never ever let an exception occur. Like set that
Yeah.
new habit, put it in stone, and then you can be flexible after that.
That's huge. That's huge,
Mhm.
Matt. Thank you. I love that. All right. I ask every guest at the very end of every episode one question, and I want to pose this question to you. 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now, however long down the road, how do you want to be remembered as a leader, Matt?
The dreaded question. Thankfully, I knew this was coming because I do my homework. Um, I liked the way that my dad was viewed, and we couldn't use this term because he was a pastor, but I can use it now. Uh, a hard ass who cares? Because I am a hard ass. I do want things done right. I do build systems to where it makes it easy to get them right, and so I expect them to be done right. Um, but I do genuinely care about the people that work for me and with me, and I want their lives to be better, and I do everything I can within the structure of the business to help make that happen, and sometimes outside the structure of the business. Um, so hopefully that's how I am remembered because that's how I intend to behave.
I love that. That is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Matt, we talked about the agency.
Mhm.
I'm going to give you a few moments. Tell our listeners who you serve, who your ideal client is, how they can find you and get a hold of you.
So getmicrofamous.com. That's the website. We are a done-for-you production and strategy firm. So we help experts and thought leaders, coaches, speakers, authors, those that type, launch a flagship video show, right? And then we do all the production and we repurpose that into podcasts, email newsletters, LinkedIn newsletters, social content, clips for YouTube, just everything that you see your favorite show host doing. We do all of that, but we do everything behind the scenes so that our clients just show up, record, and walk away.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks for having me.
taking the time out to be on this side of the podcast,
I know it's always fun.
to
I
be
appreciate it.
interviewed. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Thank you so much for also sharing your knowledge and insights with us. And look at that. There wasn't anything too provocative in terms of your thoughts on leadership. I feel like it was good. It was all great.
Good. I toned it down just enough.
I love it. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
We will make sure that we put your contact information in the show notes as well and tag you in all of our socials. For our listeners, you're seeing this. It's probably on Spotify or YouTube. Check those out so you can see the video version of this podcast. And make sure that you are following us on your favorite streaming platform. And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, you can do so on LinkedIn or Substack. Until next time, we will see you all soon. Have a good one.
Thank you for spending time growing with me on the Leadership That Shines podcast. Every episode is built around the values of impact, influence, and growth. And I want all three of those to show up in how you lead starting this week. If this episode added value to your week, share it with a leader in your world who is ready to grow. Subscribe and follow so that you never miss a week. And I'll see you in the next episode.